Hey guys, welcome back to TheMindOfBrandon, and welcome back to another Tuesday Tangent. As indicated by the title of this video, I'm going to be addressing questions about the Venus Project economy. Now, the inspiration for today's video is some commentary that I received on my most recent video titled, "Intellectual Dishonesty Does Not Debunk the Venus Project Economy," which was a response to some commentary that I received on an old video of mine titled, "Someone has debunked the Venus Project economy," where it was established that the person who was trying to debunk the Venus Project economy was not successful at doing so. So it is possible that you'll have to watch those videos to fully understand everything that's going on. In today's video, which is why I will have them linked down below in the description box as well as in the comment section. That being said, for anyone who hasn't watched those other videos, I need to just go ahead and establish again for the record that I do not work for the Venus Project. I am simply a fan of the Venus Project who views himself to be in a good position to address questions and respond to attempts at debunking the Venus Project economy. So today I will be responding to comments from two different commenters on my most recent video. The first commenter I'll be responding to is the same guy that I responded to in my most recent video. He commented on that video, so I'll need to address that. But then there's this other guy that I'll be responding to as well.
Yeah, my comment is read on a video with a funny voice.
Yeah, you're welcome.
The first comment was just written out of frustration for people claiming that RBE will work, but not addressing my questions.
Well, you definitely don't have to be an intellectual heavyweight to be a fan of the Venus Project and want to live in a resource-based global economy. You don't have to be any good at addressing questions or debunking arguments to want to live in a system where machines do all the jobs that you don't want to do, and you get to have access to the things you need without a price tag. Suffice it to say, some of the fans of the Venus Project will be better at addressing your questions than some of the other fans of the Venus Project. Don't get me wrong, that's not necessarily the only reason that someone might not address your questions. It's also possible they don't understand your questions. This actually happens fairly often in my comment section. I'll see some commentary that is just downright incoherent, and I decide not to bother responding because I don't even know what to respond to. I can't understand what the hell they're talking about. But another reason that some people will not address your questions is if they just don't have the time, if they're too busy with other things. This kind of thing has happened to me before. Sometimes I have time for YouTube. There are other times when I don't have time for YouTube. But another reason that some people might not address your questions is if they think that your questions are just stupid. You know, if they think that your questions are coming from a dishonest place, they might not want to waste their time responding to questions that aren't even serious to begin with. You know, if it seems like you're just kind of fucking around, being a troll, basically, a lot of people just won't even, bother wasting their time on you. But today, I do have the time to address your questions, and I will let you know if I encounter any questions that are hard to understand. I'll let you know if I encounter any questions that some might regard as stupid questions or coming from a dishonest place, and I'll go ahead and address them anyway. I'm actually really looking forward to responding to these questions. I'm pretty excited about this. So let's just go ahead and skip ahead right to those questions.
I have a few simple questions. If iPiano doesn't cost me anything, what prevents people from asking for a piano, even though they are not sure they will need it?
And right off the bat here, we do have a question that is not entirely coherent. I think we have some typos here. But I think that what you're trying to ask is something along the lines of, what if someone thinks that they want a piano, but they're not really sure? What's to prevent them from getting a piano anyway that they're going to wind up just not even using? I think that that's what you were trying to ask. Do let me know if you think I misunderstood the question. Feel free to clarify what you actually meant, but I think that was the gist of it. That being said, it leaves me kind of wondering, why the hell is this what this guy is worried about, right? I'm not telling you that this is objectively a stupid question, but I could certainly understand why some people would think that this is a stupid question that's not worth taking the time to respond to. It kind of seems like this guy's just fucking around, right? But I am going to go ahead and respond to this, okay? Actually, in the first video that you commented on, I did mention that in a resource-based economy, the Access Center, it works kind of like a public library. So when you check something out, you take it home with you, you just send it back when you're done with it. You, of course, don't have to send it back in a resource-based economy. You can keep it if you want to, but you certainly don't have to keep it. You can send it back. So what happens if you check out a piano and then you wind up just never playing it? You can just send it back. That's it. It's easy.
What will force people to make choices?
Okay, this question seems like it's either a completely random, nonsensical question requiring more context, or like it's supposed to be within the context of the previous question. I'll go ahead and give you the benefit of the doubt and figure that that's how it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be in context with the previous question. What will force someone to make a choice? You know, do I get the piano or do I not get the piano? Just get the piano. Just check it out, and then if you never play it, you send it back. It's that simple.
I could just order an infinite amount of everything.
No, you couldn't, because think about it. When you're punching in your order and you select the quantity, the amount of that item that you want to have shipped to you, it's not going to have every single number from 1 all the way to infinity. Right? Infinity is not going to be a selectable option. Okay, again, this is the kind of thing that a lot of people would read and think, that's just ridiculous. Right? They wouldn't be able to take you seriously. They'd just be like, why even bother responding to this guy? Because why would anyone even want an infinite supply of everything, right? It doesn't make any sense. Like would that even be physically possible? Where are you gonna put it? Why would you want an infinite supply of blenders? Or even 20 vigintillion blenders? Or 8 decillion microwaves? Or 14 quadrillion couches? You don't need all that shit! I mean, assuming that you live on your own, or at least don't live with very many people, you should be fine with 1 blender, 1 microwave, maybe even only 1 couch, 1 dishwashing machine, 1 laundry dryer. Are you seeing a pattern here? We don't need that much shit!
Even though I ask for a finite amount of stuff, how do you make sure that the aggregate demand is met by the aggregate offer? In other words, what if people ask for more stuff than what the system can produce?
Well, I'm not going to tell you that the system can grant every possible desire that you might have. Like, for example, I would like to have my own Star Trek vessel, or at least have access to one, like a spaceship with warp drive, you know, faster than light capability, so it can traverse star systems, seeking out new life and new civilizations, boldly going where no one has gone before, and of course sleeping around with all sorts of hot humanoid alien babes, right? That would be so awesome, right? That would be so cool, right? I would love to be able to do that. Here's the thing, though, we don't currently have the technological capability of doing that, and it's totally possible that we never will, even in a resource-based global economy. So what happens if it turns out that I'm never going to get my Star Trek vessel? I'm never going to be able to traverse the cosmos sleeping around with hot alien babes. What happens then? Do I, go completely unhinged, start throwing a fucking temper tantrum, blowing shit up? No, I don't. I shrug it off. I say, oh well, I'll go do something else. It's not a big deal. Because I'm well enough educated to know not to make such a big deal out of something like that. It's a wild, outlandish thing. It'd be cool, but I can't go through life expecting it to happen, right? And, of course, the point here is children of the future in a resource-based economy are not going to be raised to expect these wild, outlandish things, okay? They will be properly educated, like me. Now, what is not wild and outlandish is expecting that a resource-based global economy can continuously mass produce an abundance of renewable resources. So what would be wild and outlandish is if all of a sudden we were not able to keep producing these renewable resources. If all of a sudden we couldn't produce any more potatoes. Oops, that's it, guys. We produced all the potatoes we're ever going to be able to produce. We're never going to be able to produce more potatoes again. The point is, it's a system that relies on renewable resources that can be continuously mass-produced in high abundance, as opposed to relying on scarce resources that we burn through faster than we can mine. Okay? So the issue you're concerned with, part of the point of a resource-based economy is to see to it that that doesn't happen. Okay, now these cities, these pre-planned cities that we want to build all over the world to help us implement this resource-based global economy, okay, we don't just do that all of a sudden. We have to start with a test city. I repeat, a test city. Okay, so basically we build a city. It's unmanned at first, right? There's no people living there depending on it for their livelihood or anything like that. There's engineers there working on stuff, of course, but there's no one depending on it for their survival. Okay, so it's a test city. People are trying to work out the kinks, get it working properly, and so once it has been put to the test and demonstrated to work the way that we want it to, then we get people coming in and trying it out, looking at it. It's basically supposed to be a theme park, the test city, so people can go see what it would be like to live in a resource-based economy, so they can decide, hey, this looks great. We should do this. We should implement a resource-based global economic system, right? And so then, once we have a city design that has been put to the test and demonstrated to work the way that we want it to, that's when we can replicate it and implement it all over the world. Okay, well, we'll have different city designs, so we'll probably want to do several different test cities. But the point here is that we're not going to be implementing untested cities. We're going to be implementing cities that have already been put to the test and demonstrated to work the way that they are supposed to. Now, I'm not saying that nothing's ever going to go wrong, that everything's always going to work the way that it's supposed to. There's never going to be any glitches or anything like that. You can expect glitches. A machine might need repair or replacement. There may be, setbacks, delays, that sort of thing. But that's the worst case scenario. You might have to wait a little bit longer than you ordinarily would to get your stuff, but you're still going to get it. It's not like the system just runs out and never produces any more of it. Now, this is not something that we can say about the current system, because in the current system, we do see situations where they will produce a limited supply of stuff, get it while supplies last, right? So they can, sell all of their supply and then move on to the next promotion, basically. The next way of suckering people out of their money, basically, right? I've been in this situation where there's something that I bought and, I managed to ruin it, so I wanted to go get another one, but I couldn't because they don't sell them anymore. That is definitely not going to be a problem in the resource-based global economy.
Second question.
Now, you already asked more than 2 questions, but do continue.
What if the design of the cities or machinery happens to be flawed? This happens all the time.
Well, that's kind of a subject to interpretation question. What do you mean by flawed? Are you asking, what if the designs have something so seriously wrong with them that it has like catastrophic results or something like that? Or maybe when you use the word flawed, you mean that just kind of like as opposed to perfection, which I don't expect to achieve perfection. I don't expect that we're going to ever have a perfect system or a perfect city or perfect machines. I've actually said in the videos that you've commented on that it's not expected to be a perfect system. It's just expected to be a lot better than the current system. Okay, that's something the Venus Project has said as well. Okay, so we think that there's always going to be room for improvement. Let me put it this way. After we implement a resource-based global economy, if we manage to pull that off, right? If we implement a resource-based global economy, we still can expect that our technological capability will gradually progress over time. Okay? That means that our machines will gradually progress over time. Our cities will gradually progress over time. Whether that means that the first cities of the RBE are adapted upon and they become better cities, or if it means that they're rendered completely obsolete and we build new cities. Okay? And that is expected, by the way. It is expected that the children of the future will come up with better city designs and they will render the original cities of the RBE obsolete. But if you were trying to ask, what if there's something seriously wrong with these designs? Well, I think I pretty much already responded to that. Again, whatever designs that we implement, when we implement a resource-based economy, there'll be designs that have already been put to the test and demonstrated to work the way that they're supposed to.
Who is going to choose the design?
Well, Jacques Fresco, the guy who came up with the idea of the resource-based global economy in the first place, he also came up with all sorts of designs. City designs, designs for machines and homes, transportation. He designed the bathroom of the future and a hurricane shelter. All sorts of designs. And it's those designs, the designs of Jacques Fresco, that us fans of the Venus Project tend to think of, when we think of what's a resource-based global economy going to look like, So basically, we want to put those kinds of designs into implementation. But that doesn't mean that other people can't come up with their designs and, have them put to the test. That's fine, too.
What if someone finds a way better design?
Well, like I said, that's actually expected. It's expected that the children of the future will come up with better designs. They will render the original cities of the resource-based economy obsolete.
Should we rebuild all the cities?
Well, I wouldn't use that word rebuild. The first cities of the resource-based economy are supposed to be adaptable so they can be easily modified and upgraded. But at the same time, like I said, we are expecting to eventually render those cities obsolete to build new cities, which means leveling the old cities.
If we start by rebuilding one city, what if too many people ask to live in the new city because they know it's better?
Well, if it's a better city, then it probably has a higher carrying capacity anyway. But still, we could see that situation where there's entirely way too many people who want to live in a particular city. And if that's the case, then we can just replicate it and just build more of that kind of city. All right, that takes care of the first commenter. Let's go ahead and move on to the second commenter.
I have a few questions on the resource-based economy, and I'm sorry if you've already addressed these points before. Let's say, for example, you have a house that 10 people want to live in, but this house could only hold one of those 10 people. How would it be decided who gets to live in this house out of the 10 who want it?
Well, actually, even in the current system, if a new house is constructed, they tend to make more than one of it. For example, my next-door neighbors have pretty much the same house that I've got. That is, it's the same design. I would know my way around that house, even though I've never been inside of it. I would know where all the bathrooms are, the kitchen, the laundry room. I would know which doors actually go to rooms, which ones go to closets, right? I'd know my way around it. And I could say that for most of the houses in this neighborhood. Some of them are older houses, little one-story houses. These newer ones have been kind of constructed around them. But yeah, a lot of these houses have the same design. And of course, we can do this in a resource-based economy as well, right? We can have multiple houses that have the same design. So there's no reason we can't accommodate all 10 of those people that want to live in the same house. They will technically live in separate houses, but it can all be the same design. Remember, homes in a resource-based economy are customizable. Okay, so you can choose the design that you want.
Similarly, what if the demand for something is outpaced by what the resources available can provide? Say the resources available allow for only 100 widgets to be made, and 1,000 people want a widget. How would this system determine who gets a widget and who doesn't?
Well, if the system only has enough resources to produce 100 of these widget things, whatever the hell that's supposed to be more specifically, if it can only produce 100 of them and then that's it, it can't produce any more widgets, then that would seem to imply that the system is relying on scarce resources instead of relying on the renewable resources that can be continuously mass-produced in high abundance, right? Remember, that's how the system works. It relies on the renewable resources, not on the scarce resources. So you're not going to have this situation where it's like, oh, we've made all the widgets that we can make, we can't produce any more.
I do see hoarding resources as a possible problem with this system, as some people hoard money for resources now. Would it be as much of a problem as we see with money? I couldn't say.
Oh, right. Yeah, we're gonna hoard resources that are renewable and abundant and ubiquitously available all over the place. Yeah, because that makes so much sense. Oh, wait, no, it makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. The reason people hoard money for resources in the current system is because we're cut off from those resources in the current system unless we've got enough money to pay for those resources. But in the resource-based global economy, you are not cut off from the resources. They're made abundantly and ubiquitously available to you without a price tag.
Like using the previous example with the widgets. Let's say one person takes all 100 widgets. Maybe this person is doing it to exert some control over the other 999 people who want one, or maybe they're doing it just because they can and just wants to be a dick.
Aw, man, why didn't I think of that? I mean, someone could just take all the widgets, depriving anyone else who wants one from getting one. Oh, wait, no, they couldn't, because the system's not going to be set up in a way that they can do that. As we established, each city in a resource-based economy would be capable of continuously producing these widgets as per demand. That scenario where the system could only produce 100 doesn't really make sense with a resource-based economy because it doesn't depend on scarce resources. We also established that when selecting a quantity for the amount of whatever item it is that you want to have shipped to you, not every number from 1 to infinity is going to be a selectable option. There's going to be limits to how much you can get in a single order. Which means that if someone orders a bunch of widgets, someone else can still queue up an order right behind it, and they will eventually get their widget. At worst, there might be a delay. They might have to wait a little bit longer than a person ordinarily would, in order to get their widget, but they'll still get it. Also, you want to keep in mind that the cities in a resource-based global economy will be self-sustaining cities. So if someone does order a bunch of these widgets, it will be their city that sends them those widgets. So the system's not going to be set up in a way where one man can get every city in the world to continuously send him all the widgets that they're capable of producing. It's just not going to be set up in a way that he can do that. So this guy's not going to be able to keep the people from other cities from getting their widgets. But he's also not going to be able to keep the people from his own city from getting their widgets. Because I can think of at least 3 or 4 different ways that a person from one of these cities could obtain a widget. First off, they can, of course, go down to their local access center and check one out there. If someone decides to clean out all that's immediately accessible on display, well, that'll send a message to the system, not only that it needs to send in reinforcements from the backup surplus storage, but also that it needs to make more widgets. Now, the second way that a person could obtain a widget would, of course, be to order online, have one shipped to them. Where's that going to get shipped from? Is that going to come from what's immediately accessible on display at the local access center? No, that's for the people who actually show up at the local access center. Internet orders would come from a different supply. So if someone cleans out all the widgets that are immediately accessible on display at the local access center, that's not going to prevent someone who orders online from getting their widget. So what's the third way that a person could obtain a widget? Well, the plans for these widgets would be available online. So anyone with a 3D printer and sufficient feedstock for it would be able to print up a widget in the privacy of their own home. Or if a widget winds up being too complex for that, they can at least print up the parts and then have it assembled, whether they want to personally assemble it or have it assembled by machines. So if this hypothetical nefarious individual that you've dreamed up has both the local access center and the internet completely swamped with orders for these hypothetical widgets, well, that's not going to prevent anyone from having them made in the privacy of their own home. So for this guy to be able to keep other people from getting these widgets, that is a major undertaking. I have no idea how the hell he's going to pull it off without extra help, be it in the form of hackers or an army of terrorists with guns and bombs, or in other words, stuff that would probably defeat the purpose of getting the widgets. Why do you need widgets to exert control over others if you've got hackers and an army of terrorists with guns and bombs? But of course, that's not what you had in mind. You were thinking this guy would be able to peacefully get a hold of all these widgets, just using the system the way that it's intended to be used. But it's just not going to be set up in a way that he can deprive everyone else of getting their widgets. So again, the worst this guy might be able to accomplish is creating delays, making it so that some people have to wait a little bit longer to get their widgets. But even that can actually be prevented. So since a widget is the kind of thing that a person could theoretically be content having just one of, unless they've got nefarious intentions, then we could have it so that when someone goes to their local access center to check out a widget, it's dispensed via something kind of like a vending machine, except it doesn't take money because, of course, it's not a monetary system. But maybe it takes like an access card, or you can punch in an identification code or something like that. So you do your code and it dispenses one and only one widget. And if you immediately do your code again to try and get a second widget, it might tell you something like, please insert damaged widget to receive replacement, or wait 24 hours to replace a lost widget. It doesn't have to be 24 hours. Maybe it's only a couple hours. Maybe it's the amount of time it takes to produce a new widget. I think that makes sense. Now, I don't actually expect to see this level of built-in security in a resource-based global economy because I don't think it's going to be necessary. The point is that if it's necessary, we can do it. But the reason I don't think it would be necessary is because I wouldn't expect someone in a resource-based global economy to behave in that way. For someone in a resource-based economy to be so malnurtured and maleducated and just mentally unstable that they try to get a hold of all these widgets so they could exert control over others, that would indicate that the system is still in its infancy, still a relatively new system. The children of the distant future in a resource-based global economy will not behave in that way. They will be better nurtured, better educated. They'll come from a much saner society. So the hypothetical nefarious individual in question that wants to exert control over others, this sounds like one of the people who's still fucked up from the system we currently exist in, who's simply made the transition over to the new system. If I recall correctly, I think Fresco himself has said that if you take the fucked up people of the current system and you put them in the new system, you're going to have a lot of the same problems. Now, you can count on the resource-based global economy solving certain problems pretty fast. I would think that poverty and starvation would go away pretty quickly after implementing a resource-based global economy. Also, if you're in a fully implemented resource-based economy, you're not going to find yourself in this situation where you're like, God, I have to go to work. I don't want to go to work. I hate my stupid job. I'm just doing it because I have to do something in order to make enough money to get by in a system where the things we need cost us money, right? You're not going to find yourself in that situation. When you wake up in the morning in a resource-based global economy, you can look forward to your day because you can go do things that you actually want to do. But there's some other problems that might take a while longer for the resource-based global economy to completely get rid of. Might even take several generations. I don't know. Problems like murder, rape, child molestation, kidnapping, domestic abuse, vandalism, various forms of bigotry, right? Those are the kinds of problems I would think might take a while longer for the resource-based global economy to completely get rid of. Okay, you could certainly expect pretty immediate declines in how often those problems occur. Take for example, like child abuse. Okay, if a kid, let's say there's a 10-year-old kid that wants to get away from their abusive parents, then just punch some buttons into a computer and get their own place to live. Yes, at 10 years old. That is my conception of what things are like in a resource-based economy. A 10-year-old can go get his own place. That being said, it's actually my understanding that most of the violence that exists in this world is poverty-related. So if we do away with poverty pretty swiftly, then we simultaneously do away with most violence pretty swiftly. And if people had access to silicone love dolls and sex robots without a price tag, I would think that would do something to generate some kind of decline in the amount of kidnapping, rape, and child molestation that exists in this world. So even if we can't immediately solve all the problems that the resource-based economy is supposed to solve over time, you can expect an immediately better way of life, which means that people are going to be better nurtured, which helps kind of add to solving the world's problems, okay? But back to this guy that wants to get all the widgets to exert control over others, okay? Doesn't he have something better to do? I mean, if he's new to a resource-based global economy, okay, we established that's the only way it makes sense this guy would exist in a resource-based economy, if it's still a relatively new system. I would think he'd have other things that he'd rather do than stress out over, how am I going to get all the widgets so I can exert control over everyone? Ah! I mean, why would he even want to get control over everyone? What would getting control over everyone do for that guy that the resource-based economy couldn't do better? Right? Does he want someone to suck his dick? Does he want Emma Watson to suck his fucking dick? If he does, then he can get a sex robot and have it designed to look like Emma Watson!
I do think there's a lot of merit to this system. I'm just not seeing how you would get around some of these sorts of issues, since there are resources that are finite to the point not everyone can have one, and there would be people looking to take advantage of that. Everything I've come across so far as to how this is dealt with is by changing human nature.
Changing human nature? What, you mean like with the practice of eugenics? The selective breeding of humans for certain traits, kind of like what we see with cats and dogs and farm animals? That is not something that I've heard the Venus Project advocate. I have heard them talking about changing human behavior with the complete redesign of our culture and its values, seeing to it that humanity is better nurtured, better medicated, and better educated. And part of this better education would involve teaching people the difference between a value system that relies on scarce resources that we can potentially run out of versus a value system that relies on resources that can be continuously made abundantly and ubiquitously available to everyone all over the world. Let's face it, in a monetary system, it's scarce resources that tend to come with a higher monetary value. But in a resource-based system, a system that doesn't use money, and thus nothing in that system would have monetary value, what we value in a resource-based system is abundance, safety, security, sustainability, reliability. So in a resource-based economy, what value do you expect people to place on scarce resources when there are alternatives available of which there's actually enough to go around? Let me put it this way. Imagine for a moment that you live in a resource-based global economy. When you wake up in the morning, you don't have to go to a job that you don't want to go to, right? You can go do something you want to do. All the jobs that nobody wants to do will be done by machines. And so through automated processes, you will have access to food, clothing, shelter, medicine, education, transportation, entertainment, plumbing, and electricity, all without a price tag because you don't have to pay machines. You can travel the world without having to spend a penny. Okay? You can go to games, parties, concerts, clubs, whatever. You don't have to pay anyone. Okay? Now, imagine that you're living in that situation. Someone comes over to you, hey, I got some fossil fuels, man. I can hook you up with some fossil fuels, but you gotta do something for me. You gotta suck my dick. I mean, are you gonna suck that guy's dick for some fossil fuels? Who would suck that guy's dick for fossil fuels in a system that doesn't use fossil fuels? You'd have to really want to suck that guy's dick. Which, I don't know, maybe that's your thing. If it is, well, then it's okay. Go ahead. You know, whatever floats your boat. But I don't get why he'd ask you specifically to suck his dick if he can get a sex robot that looks like Emma Watson, or Megan Fox, or Brad Pitt, if that's what he's into. So you're saying that you don't know how we'd get around some of these issues. My attitude is, I don't get how these would realistically even be issues. Right? There's some wild, outlandish scenarios. It doesn't make sense that we'd actually see in a resource-based economy. Or at least that's what my thoughts are. Do let me know what your thoughts are down in the comments section. I hope you all enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up and share it with other people. If you're interested in watching my future videos, please subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. And I'll see you all in the next one. So have a good one, guys, and peace.